Welcome back to Weekend Walkabout, where we're in our gardens and yours virtually.
We're coming to you from gardenatz.org. I'm Stephen Nicola.
I'm Janet Makanovich, and this topic here is meant to be pretty and take us away from the white and the gray and the gold
Gray.
that's outside our window. Where the traveling garden is going to show you our must-sees. And this is I'm going to bow to Steve in most cases because it was Steve's choice in most of these to say which things we were going to show. And I'm not sure if he put them in order.
No, there's no order. This is a random, as I thought about gardens, put it together, and then I missed a whole bunch. They're really cool gardens.
There's always more.
But at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, the Arboretum there,
At the Long and Acre Arboretum.
the one thing I would definitely recommend seeing is the prairie.
And it helps to know the background of the prairie. In the 1930s, one of the professors at the university at the associated with the Arboretum, I've forgotten his name, decided that this area that used to be prairie needed to be restored. And they took a huge area. It must be about 40 acres, I think, something like that. They took this whole area, you're looking at it all the way back to the tree line there, and there's a major highway back behind that tree line. And they took plants of the various prairie plants and planted the plants, plugged them into the garden. And that was in the 1930s. These pictures that you're looking at here are probably 75 years later. And what happened since they started with plants is those plants moved themselves around, identified the areas that they wanted.
Where they wanted to be.
And what's kind of amazing is that, for instance, all of this goldenrod in the front here goes that far back and then says, I'm not going any further. The Joe Pye is in that area. Whether the plants themselves decided based on how much water was in the soil or who had how much sun or how the wind blew, but the plants have found their places and they shift a little bit. If you watch them from year to year and take your pictures and look, you can see that they've moved around from place to place.
And it's an extensive prairie. It's not massive, but there's trails that go through it. So you can walk through it all seasons. Yeah. And the wildlife, the insect life that goes on.
Butterflies and the birds chasing the butterflies. It's pretty amazing out there. But I love that whole idea of the plants picking their place. And you get to look at how large a space it is that prairie dropseed, for instance, has the grass has decided to occupy. So we try to keep things in a garden into little spaces where we have one plant. They don't want to be one plant.
Not some of these.
They want to be more than that, and it helps to have that kind of thing there.
And this is North Carolina Arboretum in the Asheville.
It's near Asheville. It's
near Asheville area, so it's in the mountains. It's in the area that got hit with the hurricane. But the thing about it has a bonsai collection.
Yeah.
And now every other bonsai collection I've been to in the north is inside.
And protected with locks and walls and what.
Yep. And here, it's shelving. They're outside, and it's pretty stunning.
It's beautiful to walk among them. And this is right off of the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yep.
So you exit a highway onto the Blue Ridge Parkway, you go a little ways down the parkway, and you come to the North Carolina Arboretum.
And
look at this.
All of these walls have displays on it. And you get this, we happened to pick the time we went there, it was fall, so we were seeing full-size trees in color.
And these beautiful bonsais.
Yeah. That they did, so.
Yeah, so if you're driving in North Carolina, once they open those roads back up.
Also, I didn't actually look up the actual location of some of these gardens, to say.
Where were we?
Where we're, which state. I know Florida, but I can't tell you where when we get it's just
I am currently Google mapping the route here. As you add each one, I'm adding a stop, so we'll see what the map looks like at the end.
Longwood Garden, we've done a webinar about. Longwood Garden is probably known as the premier garden in the United States, or one of the top three for sure. And yes, you should see everything.
And give yourself a full day, and you might after that full day want to go back one more day to the place that you like the most.
But if I was forced to pick, I love the tree houses.
Yes,
There's
you would.
3 wooden tree houses that they incorporated into the landscape, and they're just gorgeous, and it's something different. And we've watched them aged over the years. One of them is very difficult to photograph. It's back in the woods, and it's got a beehive in it. So I didn't have what I considered a good picture. But again, Longwood is open all year. You can go and see them. And
sometimes, like in the winter here, they have closed off the entrance to the house because these steps would be slippery.
But if you saw the tree houses, you would see a vast majority of at least the east.
Yes, just to see the tree houses, it would take you all the way back.
You'd
past
see
the
their
Italian
prairie,
water
you'd
garden,
see the water garden, you know, so. But it is the kind of house that makes it into those magazines. It's not one that we put into most backyards. The other two tree houses are much more like the ones that you might find in other botanical gardens. And like I said, I didn't have a good picture of the other one, but I was fortunate to go to University of Mexico's Botanic Gardens, and
which is a train ride and outside of the city.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's you take a train
outside of what city?
Mexico City,
the big city.
Yeah.
And yes, I did not go. Steve just brought me back pictures, but I remarked on the same thing. I said, these paths are amazing.
They've got hidden paths in wilder areas, you know, that you can end up walking along. And then they have formed paths like we would expect to see at various levels of the garden. The garden had a lot of different levels, so the paths were really the way they were laid out, the way they.
And we find that here in this garden and in other gardens in Europe, even some of the gardens in Canada, there's not been the emphasis on access.
Yeah.
Or
wheelchair.
So you will find paths that are smooth and maybe wide enough for someone to push a stroller or wheelchair around.
Yeah.
But you'll also find paths that go up into the gardens, and in many U.S. gardens, those would now be closed.
We would not allow people.
They would say you can't go there because if you go there, then not everybody could go there.
Yeah.
But they are wonderful, wonderful guiding paths. They're great to look at.
I'm sorry, I was looking up how the North Carolina Arboretum fared with the flooding, and I missed which garden this one was.
Oh, this is the University of Mexico.
Right. That was my, yep, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
All the signs are in Spanish too. The plant names, but there's the scientific name. I would know it, but the plant tags were all in Spanish.
Yeah.
So, and then there's paths like this
that is a path.
Is
that a path?
This is a path.
That's how you get out of this area where he got himself.
And in our country, I don't think it would be allowed in most gardens.
As a path, no.
Yeah, but it really that would impress. Besides the fact of all the unusual.
But wouldn't our kids have loved that? The kids always wanted to be on the little high hidden paths.
Yep. And
while he was there.
While I was in Mexico City, Janet said, you should go see the Mayan,
I think.
Mayan.
The whole area where the people used to live on islands. Well, they still do.
Yeah.
Live on islands, and they'd even grow on floating islands of plants in Xochimilco.
So it was a garden, but the reason to go there is for the color. The boats that you take on these canals and go by are so colorful, and the people are so colorful. There's mariachi bands going on. There's salesmen with their plants going along. This is a non-busy day. You could rent one of the pontoons yourself. You could get a group and then they come around, but the color throughout, that it just stunned me. It's not an official quote unquote botanic garden, but if I'm in Mexico City, I will definitely want to go back. It
He wants
was
to take me to the
very
nurseries
cool.
and see what stuff they have there.
Yeah. Right along the side of the river, you see this large plant, you can buy the little one. But the colors.
So if you manage to go to Mexico City, and Steve was very impressed with how, as long as you knew where you were, and
Yep.
he stayed in a good place, and he talked to the concierge, and it was not there was not a problem with crime or
You did not take certain color cabs and you stayed on public transportation. It's just the way it worked. We've also been to the San Francisco Botanic Gardens.
and there what you want to look for are the things that we can almost grow.
Oh, we might
What
be
is
able
it?
to
We
do
might be
this.
able to grow that.
Can we do this one?
And we think it's very interesting in these places that are like us in climate, but not like us. They don't get us nearly as cold as San Francisco. And of course, they're a lot more moist. They have a lot of that fog rolling in from the ocean. But oops, sorry about that. And of course, one of the plants there that you'll see there,
that I also saw in England and Scotland,
because it stays cool in the summertime, is the Himalayan blue poppy. And go and admire those plants.
People kill for not literally,
but you're not going to be able to grow them in the middle of the continent. It's just too hot and bothersome in the summertime.
Every garden that we've been in that this flower was visible, it attracted more people.
Yeah,
than
those were the questions.
Yeah,
but the aloes and the aloe relatives all blooming and doing their very cool. Wow, what a great texture that is. I'd like to have that. About as close as we can come to this, because we can't grow the aloes through the wintertime, but we can grow Nymphophia, which is called red hot poker.
And it's similar,
but the leaves are going to go away during the summertime and look kind of ragged, like alliums when they're in bloom. The leaves by then are already looking ragged. But it is beautiful to watch these and to see what lives with them. The hummingbirds.
A lot of different species of hummingbirds were in this garden.
The Anna's hummingbirds rather than just the ruby throats.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, Stephen, I didn't know you were going to put this one in there, or I would have said it looks like a kalanchoe of some kind, and the flowers are.
We saw these at in Santa
Cruz.
Where were we with Katia and Mike?
Santa Cruz.
Yeah, the bananas, the fighting bananas.
Oh, right.
Banana slug.
Banana slugs.
We saw a lot of these in the Australian section of the garden. And
right.
Then we saw it in San Francisco. And
yeah, the leaves look like euonymus, but the flowering structure, which is what makes the difference, looks like a kalanchoe. And I would have looked up because I've forgotten what that is.
Yeah.
The euphorbias. Most of the euphorbias we can grow. Those that are evergreen are going to be very short-lived for us because they may not make it through the winter. But the euphorbias are totally distinctive and totally enormous in their numbers when you go looking in gardens that are just a little bit warmer than we are. Just a little bit warmer.
Oops, sorry.
You want to go back to that?
Yes, go back. And you're seeing trees that we see, and then you see a fern, and then you notice there's something else. But they had another thing that they had was nice paths with benches that you got some really not big, bold vistas, but nice little ones.
One of the things that I thought was nice about the San Francisco Botanical Garden is that it's a city park, and it's not so well maintained as certainly very few gardens are as well maintained as Longwood Gardens.
Yeah.
But it's not at the top of their list to be out there weeding all the time.
No.
So there's much more of the look that the garden would have if you were growing this in your own yard.
Yes. And
all the rock garden. I love the rock garden.
Little rock garden that they put the conifers.
And what a great way to explain it to you, to put the rock garden out away from other things, give it its own space.
Yeah.
Use it in place of a lawn, for instance. These alpines are beautiful plants. This is You've seen gunnera in many cases with a huge leaf, big enough that you can sit underneath it like a parasol umbrella on your deck. This is the crowns of gunnera.
And to show the approach of different gardens in Scotland, they were cutting back the leaves and putting them on top of these.
They were protecting
them.
A little bit colder in the north of Scotland than it is in San Francisco.
But again,
lots of evergreen rhododendron azalea relatives.
Oh, you wish you could go something like that. And then on the other coast, all the way across, Snug Harbor
on Staten Island.
Staten Island,
Snug Harbor Botanical Garden.
It has a Chinese scholar garden.
Now you have to understand about the Chinese scholar gardens that the stonework was what we both were blown away by. But a scholar garden is a place that was a garden created outside the city where the scholars in China would go to be separate from the hustle and bustle of the city, but be in an enclosed place. So scholar gardens are enclosed by walls, and they need to have a lot of variety in a small space. So you come into this garden through the bamboo forest.
And it's a forest. That's 18, 20 feet tall.
Yeah, was Marilyn one of them? Marilyn is here today, and she might have been one of the students that went down to Tennessee with us to the Cheekwood Botanical Garden, where they have a bamboo forest. And we said, well, while we walk through with you, we are all students, we could help, so we'll bring our tools. What can we help you do? They said, we can help us thin out the bamboo. And so we would work our way into the bamboo, where you could see how close they are. You kind of turn sideways and then turn the other way, and you work yourself through to that particular big, old, dying clump of bamboo, and you saw it off at the bottom. And then you are there with a 25-foot piece of bamboo in your hand, trying to figure out, how do I get this bamboo out of there? The gardeners who worked in the garden sat back and kind of watching us and laughing, because they said, these fools have not grown bamboo. They don't know how to do this. We finally, they finally did teach us, and we learned some things how to get it out. But it's very interesting to think about, how do they grow this stuff? How do they take care of it?
So as you first...
I was just going to say, Marilyn says that unfortunately she has not gone on those trips, but she had just put in chat that the Sierra Club has 2 New York Botanical Gardens service week trips this year versus in May. She keeps thinking about doing one of them, and is inviting anyone else who might be interested in something like that.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, there's Brooklyn Botanic and New York Botanic Gardens are both. Anyway, even as you walk out of the bamboo, you start to notice the difference in the stonework. In the paths of the whole garden has stone throughout it.
But the paths and the rooms are each paved differently. Round stones, flat stones, triangular versus round patterns. And your feet feel it as you move from one room to the other.
1, 2, 3 different textures.
The paving on the ground is used in order to make you stop and look around you, because your feet feel that something just changed. So you look down at your feet, and then you look back up again. And each time you look back up, you are seeing a different view. It's helping you see more of more interest in a smaller area, because it keeps stopping you and then turning you so that you're seeing a new view, in this case across the water.
And there's always a little huts and benches and things too for people. But the stone...
And of course, many of these stones were selected specifically I have forgotten the name, someone probably here will remember it. There is a lake in China, in northeast China, where stones like this, big pillar rocks, are submerged in the water by gardener A to be taken out by their great-grandchild and used as a garden after they've weathered underneath the water. And these stones were probably picked from that lake specifically for this garden in Snug Harbor Botanical Garden.
Yeah, so they had lots of different stonework and
brickwork,
and then little views that
Does
are just
Lake Lake Ty, does that sound right?
Yes, it is. That's it.
Okay. I'll send a link.
Yeah. So that there you could walk around. It's not huge, but there's a lot of walking paths and places,
And
and you get a different view every corner.
you hear about bridges like this one that zigzag. That the bridge is meant to keep the demons from being able to chase you all the way across the bridge because as it turns, but it is also a design technique that each turn in the bridge makes you stop and look and you see a different view down the waterway from that angle. Now, Marilyn, who's been to China, maybe can comment on this because our friends who have been to China to gardens say that one of the other things you see is that when there is a garden in the middle of a city, that is heavily populated, it is a garden that is extremely well used. And by well used, I mean overused. The paths are trampled, the plants have a hard time growing. So paving is really important. Maybe Marilyn could comment on some gardens that she saw